Kyle. Today I'm going to demonstrate a really cool technique that uses 1-point linear perspective to make a four-sided shape repeat and also diminish in scale regularly as it recedes back to the vanishing point. This technique can open up a lot of possibilities and really speed up your process when constructing an architectural space using 1-point perspective. In this little illustration, I've applied this technique to really every different plane in a different way. So I used it to create this surface of ceiling tiles. I used it to create these 3 arches that progressively get smaller in scale in a really regular way. Same thing, but applied to windows. We can also use this technique I'm going to show you to create a descending staircase. In these video demos, I'm both going to show you how to apply it to create tiled ceiling or tiled floor, and specifically to apply it to create the staircase. Other things that you want to try, if you want to work through them together, we can do that during class today on a more one-on-one basis. But here we go. All right, so this technique works and utilizes the process for finding the center of any four-sided shape with both parallel horizontal edges and vertical edges. And the easiest, fastest way we do this is we stretch a diagonal from corner to corner. On each side, and where those diagonals cross gives us the perfect center of this four-sided shape, both horizontally and vertically. All right, and because our edge lengths on our parallel edges are the same, we end up with the same distance on the right side of that halfway mark as we do on the left, both on the horizontal axis and on the vertical one. Okay, pretty predictable. I'm sure you already knew that trick. But let's look what happens when we try to apply that trick to a square or rectangle that is being observed in 1-point perspective. When we encounter a square in perspective, instead of looking like a regular square, it appears to us skewed and looks more like a trapezoid. The edges that were perfectly vertical now appear to converge towards a vanishing point. And when we apply that same technique where we use the diagonals to find our center, diagonals from corner to corner, 1, and 2, we are going to find that the center, in this case on that horizontal axis, is pushed closer to the furthest edge away from us, or that smaller edge, right? And so we end up with a larger distance to center from the edges closest to us, and a shorter one as we recede towards the vanishing point. And that loss of length here relates to that loss of distance from right to left and this furthest edge in perspective. All right. This might be a little hard to wrap your head around, but let me keep moving. Start applying our perspective technique. Luckily, we're going to be making shapes that repeat over and over again. So I think that just the process will help solidify your understanding of that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to demo a tiled ceiling first. That's what I do in my handout, which is also in this page. So while you're watching the video, or even just after, you can look at all these steps written out and illustrated and follow along there too. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to just work as if I am inventing a space. You could be sighting and measuring a tile in your observed space that you're drawing, if you choose to work that way. But since I'm just inventing a space, I can kind of make my first tile however large I want to. So I'm going to set the closest edge to me at an inch wide. And then I'm just going to place a horizon line in my picture plane. Where do I want to put it? I'll put it a little bit lower. I want to give myself some space. We'll set a horizon line there. And then I'll pull the edges of this tile that I'm drawing back to my vanishing point. Oops. Hold my ruler down so it doesn't float and confuse you. I'm going to make that just ever so slightly cleaner. There we go. All right. And now, again, since I am making the rules of this space right now and inventing it, I'm going to set a length for this first tile. I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so my first tile that I'm drawing, inch here, 2 orthogonals that recede to the vanishing point, and then I have placed that furthest edge. It's already looking a little smaller than the first one, following the rules of perspective, which is good and important. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing I just demoed. I am going to connect diagonals from corner to corner to find the position of the center of this first square tile. All right, and now I'm going to, from that center point that I just found, I'm going to make one more line or orthogonal that reaches to my vanishing point. I'm ultimately going to erase this line that's bisecting my tile because I don't need a line that's halfway through. I'm just going to make those tiles whole. So I'm going to just draw that slightly lighter than the other lines that I've drawn. But now I have a line that connects from the center of that first tile I drew all the way down to my vanishing point. Missing my mark ever so slightly. You do. Remember, perspective is a distortion formula. We'll use the language of math to help you really remember that precision is pretty essential to achieve predictable and desired results. So make sure that your edges are truly going to the vanishing point and that you're using a ruler for this process, especially as you're learning it, so that you don't have bending or bowing of lines that are going to throw off the results. Okay? All right, now to get my next tile that's going to come in line, we're going to first have them descend down towards the vanishing point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a diagonal line that begins in the upper left corner. I could just as easily use the right one, but I'm just picking the left because I'm left-handed and I guess I just like it better. All right, so upper left, this is going to be where I start my diagonal. And then I'm going to angle to hit the point where the orthogonal that I drew through the center of my first tile intersects the furthest edge of that first tile. So I'm going to go diagonal from here to center on the bottom edge of that first tile. Does that make sense? And I'm definitely doing this with a ruler. Okay, so upper left, center of the bottom edge of the tile, stretching a very light diagonal line and stopping where that diagonal hits the right edge of the orthogonal from my first tile. All right, so let's just watch that path one more time. We started upper left. We hit the center of the bottom edge of the tile, the first tile we drew, and then we continued our diagonal until it intersected the right edge of the tile and made our tick mark. All right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to make a clean horizontal line across. And now I have created my second tile descending towards the vanishing point. So first tile, this now becomes my second tile. All right, to get the third tile in the row, I'm going to do the exact same thing. But this time, I'm going to start at the upper left corner of this second tile. I'm going to aim for the intersection between that center of orthogonal and the bottom edge of the second tile. And then I'm going to stretch a diagonal through those 2 points and extend it until I hit or intersect the right edge orthogonal right there. Then repeat our last step or our final step. So stretching a very clean horizontal line. I like these clear rulers for this because it allows me to see previous lines and make sure I'm keeping alignment. We included those in your kit. If for some reason you don't have a clear ruler and you're having trouble keeping those straight, you can, before you make the horizontal, you can repeat your previous process, go from right down till it intersects, and that'll give you 2 points that you can connect to make your tile. Hopefully that doesn't muddy the water and confuse you. I can show you what I mean in person too, if that confused you. Let's do it again. So now we have 3 tiles. Each one you can see is getting a little bit smaller. Our first one was 3/4 of an inch. Our second one is 1/2 inch. Our third one is about 3/8 of an inch. All right, let's keep moving. To get my fourth tile, I'm going to go upper left corner of the third tile, intersection on the bottom edge of the third tile, right at the center. Carefully place my diagonal so it both hits at upper left corner and then center of the bottom edge of the third tile. Extend it until it intersects the right edge orthogonal. And stretch it across. So we have been applying this technique and making these tiles get progressively smaller as they step towards the vanishing point. You can actually, you don't have to just make things smaller though. We can also use this same perspective technique and make shapes increase in scale in a predictable and regular way. So now I'm going to make a few of these tiles grow upward as they move away from the vanishing point. So first I need to extend my orthogonals just a little bit. Sorry, I've gone a bit wonky. Bumped into my board. Hopefully that looks straighter in the video. Okay. All right. So what I want to do next is I want to make some tiles progressively grow. I extended the left and the right orthogonals, which define the right and left side of these tiles. I'm also going to pull a line that runs through our center orthogonal. This is, I drew it lighter because I'm going to erase it when I'm done. But that center line is important. And now to get the next tile that's going to be larger in line, and we may end up having room for only one of these in the video frame, but I'll do my best. If I erase this line, I can get a couple. Extend these a little bit further. There we go. And lightly draw the center too. All right, here we go. So to get our tiles to grow, instead of starting in the upper left corner of this first tile, I'm going to start in the lower right corner. I'm going to, instead of having my diagonal hit the center of the lowest edge of the tile, I'm going to hit the one at the top closest to me. And then I'm going to stretch my diagonal up so it starts at that lower right corner, hits the center, the intersection of that center orthogonal at the top edge of my tile, and pull up until that diagonal intersects the left edge orthogonal. Make a tick mark. And then with a careful horizontal line, I've made a tile that is predictively grown a bit larger than the first tile that I drew. I'll do it one more time. Shouldn't have erased my center orthogonal. So lower right, center, and up. There you have it. All right. Now, what you should do is go ahead, and so that they don't confuse you, do a little bit of cleanup work. On your tiles. So they all look whole and the same. To make them so they're not just a runway and fill the room, we can do it actually really easily. What you want to do is you want to stretch a horizontal out. I have one started here. Really on any of those lines that you drew. I'm picking the one off my first tile that I drew. Because I already kind of hit a line there, but B, because I smartly made that first tile a really easy measurement. It is just an inch wide. So all of the tiles that are the same size and shape along that line, there won't be any perspective skewing their width. So if it's an inch wide tile here on this line, the next one to the right is also going to be an inch, and so is the next one, so is the next one. Left to inch, inch, inch. So you just have to measure that first length, and then along that same horizontal line, as long as it's horizontal, all of those widths will stay the same. Then, you've done this in 1 point perspective 2, you can just pull those tick marks that you've drawn back to your vanishing point, and that will immediately and effectively make the left and right edges of each of your tile recede naturally, just like the first row that we made. Run out of space a little bit, but okay. Okay, and then we just can also extend to finish out our tile shapes. We can just extend all of the horizontal lines that we had drawn in our first runway roll 2. And look at that. Very quickly, without any laborious measuring of angles, we have a nice long tiled floor or a tiled ceiling.